For over, for over 100 years, we have been working to make democracy work. This candidate forum is but one example of the important work the League promotes. I want to thank the candidates who are here tonight. Running for and holding public office is so vitally important to our communities. I want to thank all the people who are in person and online tonight. If you have submitted questions already, thank you. Our moderator will explain more about how questions are submitted shortly. Now I'd like to introduce Joyce Keel, who is our moderator for this forum. I want to thank Joyce and all the League volunteers working this forum. The people who volunteered and were chosen to work this forum do so because of their passion for making democracy work. They were also chosen as they are not eligible to participate in this election. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Joyce.
Okay, thanks a lot, Sue. And welcome to everybody, especially those of you on Zoom, where most of you are, and welcome to our candidates here. Tonight, we're going to have the forum in two segments. First, you'll have the chance to hear from two of the 6 candidates running in the primary for vice chairperson. And following that, a little before 7 o'clock, you'll have the chance to hear from 3 of the 4 candidates running for the secretary position in the primary. So before we hear from the candidates, let me explain how it works since we all participate. The format is opening statements, question and answer period, and closing statements. And first of all, the first thing you'll see is that all of the responses are time limited. So unless I say otherwise, the time limit is to answer a question is 1 minute. And in some cases, I'll give you a little bit longer time. When a candidate has 30 seconds to go, our timekeeper, Allison Letterman, will hold up a 30-second warning sign, as she's doing now, followed by a time's up sign when your time is at the end. So you can finish your sentence, but then you have to stop speaking. And we, as a league, know that time limits are frustrating, so I'll just mention why we have them. First, the league is diligent about treating all candidates equally. And secondly, if we don't have time limits, we don't treat the audience fairly because we want to get to as many audience questions as we can. So we know our format's not perfect, but we certainly hope it strikes the right balance. So we randomly drew candidates' names out of a hat, and that determined their seating and speaking order for the opening statements. After the opening statements, they will answer your questions. So remember, we've already gotten quite a few questions via email, but remember that those of you on Zoom or on the phone can turn in questions via email, and the address is, it's really simple, it's all lowercase, Redcliffe, all one word, at abcleaguevoters.org. So again, Redcliffe at abcleaguevoters.org. So if you're here in the audience and you have a question, just hold up your hand, and Ann will get you a card so that you write it out and get it back to her. So we have this new device, the OWL, which we're hoping works well for you who are attending via Zoom, and we'd like to thank our tech lead member, Roger Aiken, for helping to set that up and run that for us tonight. And our questions order, Diane Husid, she's going to screen the questions for defamatory content, which we don't allow, and for duplication. We'll get to as many questions as we can. So, we usually run out of time before we run out of questions, and we apologize if yours isn't asked. So, I'll read the question. A candidate can ask to have it repeated, so please be sure to remember that. We'll take turns going first, but if you have a question to a specific candidate, we'll start with that candidate. The other person can choose or not choose to answer also. So after every question is answered, a candidate can have an additional minute for rebuttal, an additional extra minute for counter rebuttal, if it's needed. You'll see as we go along, it very rarely is, but you guys be sure to just signal me if you want to offer a rebuttal or counter rebuttal. So, after we finish this segment, we'll move to the secretary section, but right now, starting with the vice chair candidates, we have Rick Peterson and Chris Hicks. So, we also, although they were invited, just to remind you, the other candidates are Stephanie Defoe-Haskins, Mercie Gordon, Nathan Gordon, and Stephen Gordon. So they were invited but are not appearing tonight. So we'll start with the 2-minute opening statements, and first to Rick Peterson.
I was hoping you did Chris first, because no, I'm just kidding. I didn't write anything down. I like to kind of speak from the heart when especially in situations like this. First, I want to say a big miigwech and thank you to Chris for showing up tonight. The way I look at this candidate forum is that it's a respect thing for me. If I'm going to ask members of the community and members of our tribal membership to vote for me, I consider it a respect thing for me to come here and tell you why I think you should vote for me. With that, as you all know, the majority of you know, I was the tribal chairman for 4 years, from 2017 to 2021. In 2021, I chose not to run for re-election for tribal chairman, and that was for a couple of reasons, mostly personal. One, if anybody follows me a little bit on Facebook, we were in the process of starting a Veterans and Gold Star children's camp here called Camp Benesi, and I wanted to show some more time to that, and I also wanted to share some time with my family. 4 years as tribal chairman, I spent a lot of time away for the community, and in coming back a year later, I'm ready to go again. Camp Benesi is up and running, and I'm ready to pick up where I left off. We did a lot of things in the 4 years I was chairman, and I believe we can do even more. Thank you.
All right, Chris Boyd, please.
Hicks. But
Chris Hicks, I'm sorry.
Boyd's our chairman, but okay.
Sorry,
Thank
I got too
you.
many
So,
Chris's on my mind.
all right. Good evening. My name is Christopher Hicks, but you can call me Chris. I'm a member of the Great Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians. I'm from the Martin clan. My mother's Gretchen Morris, and my father's Galen Hicks. My maternal grandparents are Marvin Morris and Joanne Morris. My paternal grandparents are Paul Aha and Luanna Fobb. I live in new housing, father of 5, and I'm the guardian of 2. My parents met while attending Haskell Indian College in Lawrence, Kansas, where I was born, and I'm a Haskell Rascal. I offer my heart out to our people. I grew up poor, and I know all about the struggle. I've seen the effects of alcoholism and drugs to our communities. I've lived in Red Cliff on and off for the past 16 years. I've also done a lot of traveling, which has allowed me to see what opportunities are out there. I also have seen some things, no matter where you go, are always the same. I have a bachelor's degree in political science and entrepreneurship from the University of Arizona. I'm still in school and just about a year away from a master's degree in business administration. I've been a business owner since 2017 over Gitchda Fight Promotions, and I'm the only individually owned tri-state combat sports promotion owner in the United States. I also have been the treasurer of the Red Cliff Business Development Corporation and helped to manage the tribal subsidiaries. I am a current tribal council member. I also sit on various committees and groups as the tribal liaison for the tribal council. And I am currently the homeless service coordinator for the tribe and help all of our displaced to find somewhere to sleep at night and connect with resources. With my experience, I offer great vision and knowledge to our council and our tribe. Networking and resourcing are 2 things I do very well. I want to help our tribe generate revenue, utilize what we have, and empower our membership. There are many things I want to help our council with. It starts with solutions to our problems, solutions to the homeless problem, the disconnection from our membership and what is offered through programs. Substance abuse
I'm sorry. your time's
is a
up.
big problem, and it's just something I want to address. You know, this past week, I had one of my friends passed away, and I had to help participate in the service. And you know, after you bury so many people, you got to come up with a solution. We can't just keep ignoring it.
Great, thank you. All right, starting with the questions, and we'll start with Chris Hicks for this. Give you a minute and a half. There are 3 questions, related questions. The person turned in a language from the Constitution dealing with the vice chairperson's duties. The provision in the Constitution says the vice chair shall assist the chairman when called on to do so, and in the absence of the chairman shall preside, and when so presiding shall have all the privileges, duties, and responsibility of the chair. So, 3 questions related to this. I'll read them all together. We'll have a minute and a half to respond to all of them collectively. First is, based on the vice chair functioning in the absence of the chair, should this be a full-time paid position with all the benefits? That's part 1 of it. If elected, would you be willing to function as an on-call elected official versus a full-time employee with all the benefits? And the third part is, please share your approach on operating as the vice chair in an on-call elected official versus a full-time employee with all the benefits. So you have a minute and a half to...
Can you repeat the very first question?
The very first question was, based on vice chair functioning in the absence of the chair, should this be a full-time paid position with all the benefits? And then later to the on-call.
Okay, I'll begin. So with the first question, so I just so everybody's aware, the vice chairman and the chairman they're part of the tribal administration, and they're the only 2 paid council members. The other council members do receive, they'll receive stipends for going to a council meeting. So I think what you're asking is if I'm willing to have a infrastructure adjustment, and I am. Should they be paid officials? It's a lot of work. I do think that the officials should be paid. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it's a 24/7 job. This isn't like a normal job where, you're working and you're shutting off at 4:30. You're working, this is a full-time, 24/7 commitment to the community. You might get a call at 3 in the morning because something just happened, and you got to come up with a solution right now. So it's a full-on, trying to come up with, solutions all the time. And, taking care of the chairman's responsibilities is kind of what the vice chairman does. I'm like the mirror, as a vice chairman, if the chairman's not there, I've got to coordinate their responsibilities, so I've got to know what's going on, but, I do think, it should be something that is paid, but I also think that the rest of the whole council should be tribal administration, not just one member.
All right, thank you. Rick Peterson?
I'm going to answer the question from the angle of experience. Having been tribal chairman for 4 years, I can tell you that there's a lot that the vice chairman position does that the community doesn't see. There's a lot of moving parts to our operation here. Our tribe has approximately an $80 million budget. And we have multiple divisions, we have multiple departments, and the chairman cannot be in all these places at any given time. And the vice chairman helps to distribute a lot of them duties and responsibilities. The chairman still makes a lot of the decisions, but there's daily meetings that happen at the same time. And the vice chairman will take in different different meetings, and, you know, even still, those two individuals sometimes aren't enough. With that said, yes, the vice chairman, in my opinion, has to be a full-time position. It has to be, you know, based upon, and again, that's from experience. Um, I don't know how anything else could, I don't know how else it could operate.
All right.
And I'm getting the red card waved at me, so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. And, okay, if elected, will you advocate and share with the public what you are doing to ensure that leadership makes building a nursing home and assisted living facility? Tell me what makes you competent enough to fulfill this role, starting with Rick Peterson.
Well, it's interesting, ironic a little bit, when I left, as chairman, two of my biggest priorities with these COVID dollars, with the ARP funds, was to build a new elderly facility up near the clinic. What that would do was that would allow our elders to be near healthcare. It would get them out of the new housing area. And not only to mention that, the building is 40 damn years old. People talk about our elders, well, we need to do something about it, you know? And I wanted to move it up there, and it also, and what my proposal was, and it was a formal proposal, was take the old elderly housing and turn that into a transitional housing. That would alleviate some of the issues with the homelessness and transitional housing. When I left shortly after the funds came in, and with that, that is still going to be one of my big priorities.
Right, thank you. Chris Hicks?
Yep, can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. If elected, will you advocate and share with the public what you are doing to ensure that leadership makes building a nursing home and assisted living facility? Tell me what makes you competent enough to fulfill this role.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think it's important that the tribe's transparent with what we're going to do, and the community has more input on the things that we're trying to do. You know, I think that the community should have more say, and we should do more surveying to see what our community members want us to do. You know, maybe we have some ideas, so we put those ideas out on a survey and we see what ideas that the community is driving more towards, or if there's an idea that we're not hitting on. As for getting the nursing and the assisted living, CBRFs and AFHs, we could do it. There's tons of funding for it. We're just not utilizing it. You know, it's just something I've been knocking on the door as a council member right now. I'm trying to get it to happen right now, but you know, I've got 8 other people I've got to get to agree with me, but I will continue to advocate, especially as the vice chairman. Which?
All right, thank you. This next set of questions, there was some background information provided by the questioner, which we normally don't do editorial things, but this doesn't seem editorial. Somebody's presenting some facts, so the first thing I will do is read what their statements are. First, I'll ask you to comment on whether or not these background statements are accurate or not. And then we'll get into the 3 specific questions, which are a little more straightforward about this. So here goes with the setup. And this says, within the past year, the Red Cliff Tribe was awarded American Rescue Plan funds in the neighborhood of $50 million, give or take. To date, there has been essentially 0 community involvement as to how those monies have been spent or where the money has been allocated. There seems to be a lack of transparency in keeping the membership informed. Some items of concern are as follows: allocation of $4 to $5 million for a cultural center, $200,000 for administrative costs related to homelessness, 5 million plus in stimulus payments directed to eligible tribal members, 12 million allocated to housing, 100,000 to purchase land from a tribal member where the property is not within the reservation boundary, undisclosed amounts for additional property purchases both on and off the reservation, and other projects which have not been made public, or the respective dollar amounts associated. And so there are 3 questions. I'll tell you what the questions are, just very briefly, and then we'll get to them. But one question has to do with disclosure. I'm just telling you these so you can segregate your responses. One has to do with disclosure. The other has to do with rainy day fund, and the other has to do with uncontrolled spending. So, but first let me just ask you if you have any comments about this background information that was presented as to whether, I guess, you agree or disagree with its accuracy, or whatever comments you'd like to make about that before we specifically address those questions. So, starting with Chris Hicks.
Yeah, that's fine, I can answer the question.
Okay. Oh, okay. Did you have any comments?
You know, I follow it, you know, through the newsletter and different things like that. The way the funds are being allocated, it sounds accurate to me.
Okay.
But I do have one question though. When we get these, when we get these things with multiple questions, do we still only get a minute?
Unless I tell you otherwise, but the questions are pretty specific here.
Okay.
But if you think you need more, feel free to just say,
Okay.
no, I think this deserves 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So,
Okay.
so no, we're flexible. And you do have the rebuttal option too. So, first question is, prior to the general election, would you be in favor of full disclosure to the community of every dollar of ARP funds either spent to date or allocated to various projects being proposed? So, starting with Chris Hicks, would you be in favor of full disclosure?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there should be a full disclosure. Yep.
Okay. And Rick Peterson?
I think it's a responsibility of the tribal council to provide full disclosure to the community on any funds spent. I was tribal chairman when we had when the CARES Act money came in ahead of these ARP funds, and we had, I know, at least 2 community forums where we actually called a meeting and we went into executive session to discuss how those meetings were, or how the funds were being spent. So I'm absolutely on board with that.
All right. Next question. Should the tribe look to reserve a significant portion of these funds in a rainy day fund? Starting with Rick Peterson.
I don't know that it's allowable, to be honest with you. There's timelines that Treasury has mandated for the funds to be allocated and to be spent. To hold something, my interpretation of a rainy day fund is, you know, something that can be utilized whenever it's needed, you know. Is that needed within the allocated time that Treasury mandates, or is it something 10 years down the road? Again, I don't think, you know, in terms of a rainy day fund, I don't know that that is allowable. But if ARP funds are being utilized for expenditures that our discretionary dollars are not being used, then those discretionary dollars could be used for a rainy day fund.
Chris Hicks?
Yeah, so can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. Should the tribe look to reserve a significant portion of these funds in a rainy day fund?
Yes, I think that the tribe should. I do think that we've already beat down quite a bit of that money. There's about $16 million left out of all the money remaining. But I do think that it would be responsible of us to take and put about, you know, I'd say about $5 million, $1 million even, into a CDC account or a CD account, and then you know, it's how you word it. It can be done. You can put the money into like a accruing interest account, because the answer at the end of the day is COVID is never going away. So it's kind of how you structure it and how our planning department prepares that to be presented on how we're saving that money and why. Because this money came to us one time. So if we structure that in a way to where this money is being, a percentage is being put away because we don't know if we're ever gonna get an ARPA relief again down the line. And I think that's what we should do. But again, there's 8 other council members, you gotta get on board with that.
All right, next question. If elected, how do you propose to bring under control what appears on the outside to be uncontrolled spending of the ARP award? Starting with Chris Hicks.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. If elected, how do you propose to bring under control what appears on the outside to be uncontrolled spending of the ARP award?
Yeah, so, you know, I believe that we should keep the money as non-discretionary as it is now, for one. Once you make that money discretionary, tribal administration can take control of that money and begin to put it into retrospective spending, which is that out of control spending that people are talking about. But by keeping it non-discretionary, then, you know, the overseer of the money is the council, the client is the people, but that money can't be spent without the entire council agreeing. Instead of just 2 executives, let's fix these problems, let's spend this money this way or that way. You know, that's the first, you know, struggle that you're going to deal with, depending on who is in administration, because some people like to put money in discretionary dollars like that, and that's why this money gets blown and not used in a good way. You know, I want to protect that money. I want to keep it non-discretionary.
Rick Peterson.
I say this respectfully, the ARP funds are not totally discretionary. The Treasury has a book full, because I've had to read them, of ways that the money can be spent and the ways it cannot be spent. They actually have multiple examples of how it can be spent in certain situations and how it cannot be spent. In regard to the perception of uncontrolled spending, in my opinion, that can be rectified in one word, and that's transparency. That's hold community forums. Prior to big expenditures being approved and allocated. We just, you know, they just approved, you know, I don't know how much, I can't remember, for the cultural center, but again, you know, there was nothing prior to that, you know, that was brought to the community.
All right, thank you. Next question. What will you do to enhance our economy in Red Cliff? Starting with Rick Peterson.
Well, there's multiple things that we worked on when I was chairman, that I believe were starting to bear some fruit. It's going to take more. One of the things that I focused on as chairman, and I do think it's going to take more, is infrastructure. Our roads. That was another one of my priorities with the ARP funds. Is paving some of these roads, getting that type of stuff done, and also, you know, expand the business footprint. You know, I've been an advocate of entrepreneurship. You know, my background is, you know, I was one of the first employees for one of the most successful companies around right now, SpaceX, and you know, that entrepreneurship is realistically going to, it can go a long way.
All right. Chris Hicks.
Yeah, so right now I sit on the tribal council, and one of the things that I've been trying to push, I've been a really big advocate for, is tribal lending. Tribal lending, if you guys look at other tribes that have utilized it, it can get sticky. You know, we're definitely gonna get into some lawsuits, but there's not been a successful lawsuit. You know, and what it does is, we're lending this money out to, people who are gonna take this money and use it for whatever, but there's interest on it, we're getting it back, and we're gonna make money hand over fist. And we're not having to spend our own money. So once this big old golden nugget's gone, what money do we have? We don't have millions no more. The tribal lending, you're talking multi-million dollar industry. And it's gonna bring in a lot of new jobs. We can employ just as many people as this casino employs, if not more. We also need to reapproach this casino. We need to utilize business people, and we need to utilize our spaces that are vacant.
Next question. Please tell me how you will improve implementation of Ojibwe culture into our community, starting with Chris Hicks.
So, that's a really good question. And I think it's gonna come down to, it's a culture, we need to have more workshops, intertribal workshops, so we can see what all of these different programs have to offer. So we don't have a million different cultural coordinators. We have, these different people that are coming up, and we're putting them all together with a more multi-program approach where we're touching base with everybody within the organization and outside the organization. We have to be intentional to reach people, as often people aren't communicated with. I think that we do very poorly on social media and just in promoting things in general to people. And we need to be intentional about it, wanting to get people there, with your ceremonies, your language, and all these other aspects of our culture. That's a big question.
Thank you. Rick Peterson?
I agree with Chris. When I was tribal chairman, we tried multiple ways to get people more involved in the cultural aspect. We worked with TIPO, with our TIPO department. We also injected quite a bit of funds from the CARES Act money into our cultural and TIPO programs. We bought new buildings and other different items. And we also worked on grants, and TIPO has received some grants. And one thing that worked when I was growing up here, I would like to see more programs that get our tribal elders involved in teaching our younger generation. When I was growing up here, we had Dee Bainbridge, we had multiple elders who, especially if we did wrong, they let us know it. And we definitely, that is my, one of the things that I would like to see more of.
Thank you. I'm going to read two questions relating to language. Okay, we have been in a state of emergency regarding language revitalization. How are you actively involved in language revitalization? If you're not currently actively involved, how do you plan to become involved? And a related question, I think, is how available are you to help teach our youth Anishinaabe I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, Ichigewan? I can spell it if it's...
I'm not sure, but I'd have to see it if I can.
Okay,
Yeah.
Izhichigewin.
I don't know, I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Okay, well, at any rate, about teaching language and the other, starting with Rick Peterson.
I personally have not been involved in our native language in depth for a long time. When I was growing up, I had Ojibwe language with Dee Bainbridge and our other tribal elders, but then I was gone for many years. But the one thing that I have taken in my personal time since I've been away from the chairman's position, um, myself and the council at that time, we were really concerned about our youth being able to take over the tribal government. So we resurrected the Junior Tribal Council, which hadn't been active since about 2012. And when I left office, I went on as an advisor to bringing the Junior Tribal Council back into active status. And I've been working with them actively. They were all just sworn in a couple of weeks ago, and I've been spending a lot of time on that.
All right, thank you. Chris Hicks?
Yeah, so I am currently the liaison for the tribal council with language and culture. And right now we're working on ways to address this very question and how to implement it within the organization and within the tribe. And right now what we've come up with is we're working on the orientation through the different departments. So how do we fit language into, the orientation aspect of becoming an employee, especially if you're a non-tribal member? That's a very interesting piece of it. Another thing is, Wisconsin Act 31, our children's where it starts. So we got to really push at the Bayfield School to promote that language. And they're not going to do it for us. The Bayfield School is going to do what we ask them to do. I think you got to be easy about it. Easy ways to promote it is through ceremonies. I've always thought that we should do a welcoming ceremony for our new employees and an exiting ceremony for our employees when they leave. Because it's bringing people on in a good way, and you're using that language. I think you learn the language the best through those ceremonies. It resonates better.
Okay. I would call them already.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yep.
Reading ahead here. Next question. How do each of you feel about the tribal council being involved with the decision-making process in hiring and firing employees? Why doesn't the decision come from immediate supervisors rather than council members? Do you think this is an ethical practice as you currently have it? Chris Hicks.
No, I don't think it's ethical at all. I don't think that the tribe should be involved, tribal council should be involved in that, period. It's, I'm on council, and I've unfortunately had to be in those situations, and I don't like it. I don't think it's okay that we're involved in that. It's, I think that tribal council is supposed to be looking at the future and the bigger picture things, and we're not supposed to be involved in micromanagement of our employees. That's just, we're not working like a tribe. We're working like we're CEOs of a business or something like that, and we got to come down on people. And it's it almost becomes biased at that point because not everybody gets that same treatment, and I don't like that. If you look at, I've always abstained from any of that type of stuff going on. I don't get into it, so I don't agree with it. No.
Okay, Rick Peterson.
I agree 100% with Chris. The structure is set up the way it is. It was there prior to, excuse me, prior to me becoming tribal chairman. The conflict of interest is not only a direct conflict of interest, but it's a perception of a conflict of interest. If you have the tribal council and even a member in on the interviews, whether that conflict is there or not, the perception is there. As tribal chairman, I never sat in on one interview for that specific reason. I did not want anybody having the perception that I used my position in one way or the other to hire or not hire somebody. And I believe that should be council-wide.
All right, thank you. The questioner had, excuse me, another couple of questions about treating employees equally and holding tribal council, well, that actually is separate. And micromanagement, but I think you've adequately addressed that already. Another question, how would you hold other council members accountable for doing their jobs? Namely servicing the people. So, Rick Peterson?
Well, I don't believe that it's any other council member's responsibility to hold another council member responsible for servicing the community. That's what the community elects them for, and that's what the ballot box is for. The ballot box is there, so if somebody is not doing their job and hasn't done their job, you vote them out of office. Now, with that said, if I see, if a council member does something unethical or a breach of policy or the Constitution, yes, then the council can hold them responsible for that. But as far as service to the community, that's what you're elected for. You're here to serve the community, not yourself.
All right, Chris Hicks?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. How would you hold other council members accountable for doing their jobs, servicing the people?
So I think so it's a good question. I want to start off with, we don't do enough. As council, we don't do enough. We don't do enough because last time we ever got restructured was in 1995, when Bill Clinton was president, and your gallon of milk was $1.50 and your gas is like $1.50 as well. Times were way different then. Now, the way we run operation makes it so that there's two people that are tasking, your vice chairman and your chairman. The rest of the people are just council members. So that takes away from the synergy and the tasking ability of the council. We need to be able to task each other more with responsibilities that are going on within the tribe that are going to help us move forward quicker. We're moving like molasses, not because we can't move faster. It's because the way that we're set up right now, it's hard for us to move faster, because how can you expect 2 people to do all that stuff? 9 people could do it, because we could delegate, but, that's just the way it is right now. As vice chairman, I'd advocate for that.
All right. Next question. Do you feel you could represent Red Cliff in regard to the U.S. government or other entities on a similar level in a competent way? If so, what are 2 things you would address and how? Okay, and starting with Chris Hicks.
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. Do you feel you could represent Red Cliff in regard to the U.S. government or other entities on a similar level in a competent way? If so, what are 2 things you would address and how?
Yeah, I definitely feel that I am ready to, I'm a council member now. I went to the federation meetings and stood my ground and stood up for our people and tried to move a lot of things. As a council member today, I feel like I've helped promote a lot of, forward movement in progressing our council to be more progressive instead of in the retrospect of things. Things that we need changes with, though, on the big, giant, upper level, I would say land disputes. We need to work on getting Congress to do a feasibility study on profits made, damage to land, land lost, and ability to access areas. And then we need to invest in a lobbying firm. We don't invest in lobbying at all, and that's a big downfall here. If we don't invest in lobbying, we don't have nobody down in DC brushing shoulders with the big wigs to get us on that big stage to move us forward. We've got 1 lobbyist, and we've got $16 million left, and we haven't invested any in lobbying.
Okay, Rick Peterson.
I, as tribal chairman, used to make regular trips to Washington, D.C. You have a cell tower up there that we got because of one of those trips to D.C., which was funded by FirstNet, which is a congressional allocated organization. I went to D.C. After the big storm we had a few years ago on Thanksgiving, where we were pretty much snowed in for a week because we had no equipment. I was able to get new roads equipment paid for. I was able to get new ambulances because our ambulance got stuck out here during that same storm. But one of the big things I was working on when I left as chairman was the Section 106 reviews for the TIPO. The Trump administration revoked those, which is the TIPO review. And I had meetings with every single FCC commissioner out there to try to get that reinstated with the new administration.
Changing gears here. If elected, what plans do you have to improve our economic position amongst the others in the area bidding for tourists? That is Ashland, Washburn, Bayfield. How does Red Cliff survive other than off of government subsidies? So I guess competing for tourism and the question of subsidies. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well, starting with Rick.
Me?
Peterson, sorry.
Okay. I was gonna let you go, man. I think we touched on this on an earlier question, to be honest with you. You know, the earlier question was how do we expand our economic footprint, basically, paraphrasing. And it's the same thing, you know, I mean, both the tribe and our community need to invest, you know, like I said, in entrepreneurship and other industries that will attract people to come out here. You know, if Bayfield or Washburn is offering something that we're not, my question is why not? You know, we have to go down that road. You have to give people a reason to want to come here. You know, and I really think that we have an amazing opportunity. I've had voters say Red Cliff is realistically, Bayfield touts itself as the doorway to the Apostle Islands. They say no, Red Cliff is. And I really think that we need to promote, what we have here a lot more.
Okay, Chris Hicks.
Yeah, so right now we are working with, Bayfield County. I think this is a good thing. It's in the works, but I think that we need to follow through with it. That's kind of how things go. If you don't follow through, nothing happens. But there's been an idea brought up with Bayfield County tourism, and what they want to do is they want to make a trail from the brownstone all the way up to Frog Bay. But it's going to come down to us wanting to group with Bayfield County to do this. I think it's a great idea for tourism. You got this big long biking trail all the way that long. You can run, bike, do whatever. That's a good start. Another thing is we need to restructure this casino here. This is a resort casino, but we don't run it like either. And it's not that it can't be successful. It can be successful, but we need to utilize resources. Like my man in the crowd over there, Shauneah Gordon, in his kayaking business. They need a package with people like that. And they need to, we got Living Adventures up there. It's just sitting there vacant. We have so many things here. Perry's on the lake over there. So many things here that we could do that we're just not doing.
All right, thank you. Next question. The person thinks that executive sessions of the tribal council are being overutilized to keep the community out of knowing what's going on. The question is what position would you take to open these sessions for enrolled members? Chris Hicks, please.
Yeah, so I think that goes back to what I've been saying is we need to change our infrastructure. You look at the LCO model, for example. Anybody knows LCO 10, 15 years ago? LCO is in millions and millions of dollars of debt. They restructure and they make their whole entire council onto the administration. Next thing you know, LCO is flip-flopped around. You go to LCO now, they're doing great because now they have the people to do what they need to get done. Can you repeat that question one more time?
Sure. Well, the question is, what position do you take to open these sessions for enrollment?
Yeah, and the other thing is that with that piece there, having tribal council sit as the administration, they can have an executive sessions during the day, and when we come out to council meetings, this is when we can really formulate back and forth with the people and we can gel our ideas. This is what the council wants to do, here's what we want to do as representatives. What do you think about this? There needs to be more of that going on. Whoever asked that question is right. You know, we lack the community. That's our biggest resource, and we don't use it.
Rick Peterson?
Again, I'll revert back to being the tribal chairman. The agenda is approved prior to the meeting by the chair and the vice chair. And when I was looking at the agenda and the items, I used to ask myself questions about, you know, I would say, is there confidentiality issues here that are protected under policy or law? And also, you know, sometimes the things that we talk about in executive session are requested by the community member. And, you know, I understand the perception, but, you know, I think that one way to fix that, I guess, or to try to fix it is to again, come up with criteria for what goes into executive session and what doesn't.
Well, we have a lot more questions, but we also want to give a fair amount of time, a fair slot to the secretary position. So unfortunately, we're going to stop here with this and ask you to give your 1-minute closing remarks, and starting first with Chris Hicks.
All right, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out here tonight and listening to what each candidate has to offer to our membership, specifically Rick. There are many things you can take home with you from tonight, but at the end of every day, actions speak louder than words. We have problems we're all well aware of, and we also have strengths. So let's not turn our cheek to the problems any longer, but let's address them together. We have strengths and let's not be complacent with what we succeed in, but strengthen where we are strong. If we are going to die one day as individuals, then let us die doing what is right in our lifetime and giving to our next generation. It is the reflection that we leave behind that shines through the generations that will follow us. I ask our membership of your support to help us leave a better tomorrow for us and for our children that will one day be in our positions. As council member and vice chairman, I will struggle for you so you do not have to struggle so much. And if you are also struggling, I will struggle with you. It is in my heart to do what is right for our people. So one last thing, my favorite quote is from Chief Crazy Horse. And he says, "A very great vision is needed, and the man who has it must follow it as the eagle seeks the deepest blue of the sky." I have a vision for our people, and with your support, I will help the council bring it to you for all of us and for our future. Miigwech, love and hugs, everybody.
Okay, Rick Peterson?
Again, I have nothing written. I just want to say that I'm honored to be sitting here to even be considered for the position of vice chair. But I also want to say a special thank you to Chris for showing up tonight, man. And it takes a lot to put in for these positions and put yourself out in front of the community, in front of the world, really, and open yourself up to all kinds of, you know, shall I say, critiques from different angles, different sides, and you know, and I also, you know, want to say thank you to the other candidates. But you know, when I decided to put in for vice chair, it had nothing to do with me and everything to do with what I felt I left on the table when I left as the chairman. We accomplished a lot in 4 years, and if elected chairman or vice chairman, I will pick up where I left off, and we will do our best to continue to move our community forward. And I'm going to take one little extra bit of time here too, Chris. I'm going to tell everybody a quote that one of our tribal elders told me when I was sworn in as tribal chairman. He pulled me off to the side and he said, "You know, Rick, He said, you're in a position now where no matter what decision you make, you're gonna piss somebody off, so just do what you know is right. And that's the way, what I always did, and I'll continue to do that. Thank you.
Well, thank you both so much, and we could now have the secretary candidates come up. And for the audience on Zoom, we'll be restarting in just a second.
I have the.
Oh, you have the minutes and with us tonight, we have Shauneah Gordon, Nora Cadotte, and Joe Montano. Benton was not able to come tonight. So we will start right away with the 2-minute opening remarks, please. And we'll start with Shauneah Gordon.
I'm Shauneah Gordon. A lot of you guys know me as Shauneah Claremont. I'm a lifelong resident of Redcliffe. Like Chris, my grandparents are Marvin and Joanne Morris. We share a lot of family. A little background on me. I have associate's degree in administration. I graduate this May with my degree in criminal justice with an emphasis on probation and parole. I've been secretary for a lot of boards, commissions, committees since I started working for the tribe about 8 years ago. Right now, I'm the assistant director for the Public Works, Water and Sewer Department. Another thing about me, I thrive under stress. I love stressful situations, enjoy challenges. I'm not one that gives up. And I guess a big thing that I really wanted to say here is that if there is a possibility for me to be elected, I'm not going to make promises. A lot of people, when they become council members, they make promises. They don't happen. I want to work with the community, not against you. That's really about it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Nora Cadotte, please.
Bonjour. Ajinakazo Gijigo Kwe. Greetings. My Ojibwe name is Sky Woman. I was gifted that name many years ago in high school from a really respectable elder who was a teacher, and she has walked on. It was Dee Bainbridge. She was one of our first language speakers here on the reservation. And she is a great teacher. I'm a lifetime resident. I was born and grew up here, lived here most of my life. I'm a mother. I have 3 adult children, and I'm a proud grandmother. I have 3 young grandsons. I'm also an auntie and a sister. This is nerve-wracking. I've never done this before. But I have been on the tribal council, and I was in 1994. I filled someone's position that had walked on, and then I ran for council, and I was elected in 1995, and I served in 95 and 96. I see a lot of things happening in our community, and I'm an employee of the tribe. I work for the tribe. And through my work, I've tried to help the community. And I don't see myself getting good results. So I was thinking and debating all this time, where can I be effective or effective? And so that's what prompted me to run for the secretary of the tribal council. Miigwech.
Joe Montano.
Bonjour, Shinabiduk. Joseph Montano, Indigenous Cause, Dede Mark Montano, Nimama Liz Goki. My grandparents are Toddy Goki and Alex Goki, Ike Goki. My grandparents, my other grandparents are Midge and Liz, or Midge and, sorry, first time since COVID doing any of this. Midge and Frank Montano. I moved back to Red Cliff back in 2016, and I moved back from Mille Lacs, Minnesota. I worked for the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe down there. And before that, I lived over in Turtle Lake, and I seen how a lot of these tribes have a lot of things going for them, especially economically. They're light years ahead of us, and so when I came back, I ran for at large in 2017, just barely missed, and the past two vice chairman elections I ran for vice chairman. I just barely missed there too. But I come with my main focus being economic development and also language revitalization. So I'd like to thank everyone for showing up. I know, like what Nora said, it's very hard. It's very difficult to sit up here, even if there's 3 people in the crowd. And it's very weird to stare at an owl and talk to an owl. But miigwech. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and a lot of the questions that we got were appropriate to both vice chair and secretary positions. So I'll be doing some of the same questions, but some different questions. So I'll read 2 of these. They're very similar. What will you do to enhance our economy in Red Cliff? And how do you plan to support tribal businesses? And starting with Nora Cadotte.
Right now, the casino, you know, we acquired this like years ago, and I think it's a good place, but we just need to know how to promote it, sell it, get the people here. And if we can separate it from tribal government and run it as a business, I think we would be more successful in doing that. And I do support people that are trying to run their business here. We need more people running businesses in our community. Thank you.
All right, Joe Montano.
So in 2017, I was put on the Business Development Corporation board. And in 2018, I was made the vice president of the board and the Business Development Corporation, and also later on the president. And so during my time with the Business Development Corporation, we were able to make great strides, especially with the gas station. When I first came in there, we had a small little register, you know, that I like to say that you bring it in like this. And now we have a point of sale system that can talk to our computers, and it's through the cloud, and it can also talk to our pumps. But making strides like that and seeing opportunities like that to work harder or work smarter and not harder is one of the things that I think is needed here in Red Cliff. Miigwech.
Shauneah Gordon.
So the big thing that we have here is the casino. I do feel that it can do so much better. To bring people in is going to bring people not only, I guess, into the casino itself, but we have so many small businesses throughout the community that are in the community only. They're not spread out. People don't know about them. I'm not sure what the word is, I guess expand on these small businesses would be very beneficial for the members here. There's so many brilliant minds, and people start these businesses, and there's so many hurdles for them to get where they need to be, and supporting them, I believe, is what needs to be done.
Great. How should the tribal council address the substance abuse problem, starting with Joe Montano?
That's a very difficult question, and the answer is even harder to explain. But the way that I feel it to be is that we have a lot of people that are lost, and lost in the meaning of they don't know who they are. We have, you know, generational trauma that has happened, and we're taught to be a certain way and not speak our language, not grow our hair out, and I feel like now we are really seeing that impact years and years later. And I think language revitalization, cultural revitalization is a key part to that. Language.
Shauneah Gordon?
So I'm going to address this a completely different way than what Joe did here. A lot of people know I am also a recovering addict, and it takes a lot for a person to move forward in their life. Before this started today, I was speaking to an individual outside, and she was talking about one of her friends that is struggling right now. And one of the biggest things that we can offer right now is just the support. We need to be there for each other. Everybody goes through it in some way or another, whether it's, you know, alcohol, drugs, gambling, just there's addiction from one end of the reservation to the next, and it is not going to go anywhere until we step up. Forcing people to become sober is going to make it worse. That is something I put out there all the time. They need to want it. You need to help them want it without forcing them. I could go on and on, but
All right.
thank you.
Nora Cadotte, please.
That's a big concern of mine, is the substance abuse happening on the reservation. And our people, their spirits are hurting. We need to be able to find a way to hear them and offer them support. You know, it's affecting families, you know, and sometimes, you know, it has to be tough love. But we need to have an area where they feel comfortable and that they're, you know, being listened to. I've talked to people that have, you know, gone through recovery, and some of them have gone through 7, 8, 9 times before they finally find the solution or the answer or someone there to help them. You know, we can't be putting these people down. It's, you know, like trauma that's affecting them and everything that's happening in the world.
Thank you. I'm going to read the next set of questions together because they relate to you specifically, but they also relate to the general topic. And the questions are, what cultural activities are you currently involved in? If you're not involved, are you open to learning and engaging in cultural activities? And some examples are given, such as sugar bush, winter camps, language camps, spearing, harvesting, hunting. So that's the first question is specifically about you, but the second part is how would you improve implementation of Ojibwe culture into our community? So your personal experience and the overview of what you would do. Starting with Shauneah Gordon.
So cultural activities I'm involved in, there's some but not many. I hunt, I fish. I know a little of the language and I try to pass that on to my son. I did dance, I've kind of given that up. My body is not the best for it, but I try to keep my son involved. Things that I could, the second part of the question again, please.
How would you help improve implementation of Ojibwe culture into the community?
Getting it out there. There's all kinds of activities available, but a lot of people don't know about them. The communication is one of the biggest issues with getting people involved. A spokesperson maybe, you know, I mean, the website helps, Facebook helps, things like that. But not everybody has the capability of getting onto Facebook, a website. I don't have Facebook for one, so I would have no idea. Just sharing it vocally, putting it out, not billboards, post boards, whatever.
All right, thank you. Nora Cadotte?
Cultural activities. My family has had a sugar bush for years. It's the old-fashioned sugar bush. We have to walk a mile into camp to collect the sap. We boil it outside over a big black kettle. So, and my father was into hunting, fishing, trapping. He was a fluent speaker of the Ojibwe language. My mother was a crafty person. She made dream catchers. I attend powwows when I can. I get involved with, like, when they make ribbon skirts or any cultural activities that are going on, language camp. I participate in a lot of the activities that are put on by the community whenever I can. And I also have my own spiritual praying that I do. And thank you.
All right, Joe Montano?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure, there are two parts. What cultural activities are you currently involved in? And if you're not, what are you open to learning about and engaging in? And also the second question is, how would you work to improve implementation in the community of Ojibwe culture?
So, I mean, currently, lifetime. I'm a singer. I go to powwows. I haven't the last few years, of course, because of COVID. But so I sing. I teach moccasin game to young men, and I teach drum making, hand drum making. I do sugar bush. Right now, spearing is happening right now, and I'm helping to make sure that the spearers can go out there and spear. So, and then what was the second part?
Well, how would you work to improve implementation of Ojibwe culture in the community?
Okay, I think the key is always through the youth, offering more opportunities for the youth, and also getting parental engagement or guardian engagement. So if you get that support from home, that's always a great thing.
Right. The question that was asked to the vice chair candidates about the American Rescue Plan funding seemed like an important question, so we'll ask you that too without reading that whole thing that the person had given some statistics about current uses. But we'll start with the general question about prior to the general election. And does anybody need me to refresh their recollection about it?
Not that big spiel,
Yeah,
but just the questions.
About the money. So the questions relating to that is, prior to the general election, would you be in favor of full disclosure to the community of every dollar of our funds either spent to date or allocated to various projects being proposed? So just first question is, would you be in favor of the full disclosure? And starting with Nora Cadotte.
Yes, I would. I think the tribal council has to be transparent. And I've been thinking about this. I thought maybe the council could put a sheet of paper together that, you know, roads department got $200,000, land was purchased, $350,000, whatever it was spent on. I don't know why it isn't communicated to the community. You know, the money is for the community. So I think full disclosure should be made to our community. We should be aware of where that money's going. And if other departments can ask for it, they should be allowed to ask for it. Because I know only a few departments were awarded some of that money. So I'm all for a full disclosure.
Joe Montano?
Yes, I don't see why any candidate would say no. I mean, that's like Nora said, we do need transparency. I don't know why it wouldn't even be on the website. Okay, this much was allocated to this much was allocated to that. One general place, and I do know that some things are put on the newsletter, but then you got to go back and look, and that becomes a big hassle. And if anyone has any questions, it'd be easy just to go look at the website, and it should be no big secret. You know, it's not. If it does need to be a big secret, then something's going on. And you know, I'm not saying that anything is, but it shouldn't be a secret.
All right, Shauneah Gordon?
I would also agree to a full disclosure. One big issue that I have is when this funding is spent, a lot of people aren't finding out about certain purchases until after the fact. Properties, things like that. Where are these properties located? What was bought? What's on this property? What was the purpose of it? Things like that. Joe brought up keeping it a secret. I'm thinking secrets in my head. Not everybody knows what it has been spent on. Nobody knows what is really left, what was allocated to certain departments or even certain people. There's a lot of rumors, stories, I guess, things like that that need to be cleared up. And without a disclosure, nobody is going to know.
Right. Next question. Should the tribe look to reserve a significant portion of these funds in a rainy day fund? Starting with Joe Montano.
It's always a very good idea to have a reserve budget or a reserve account set aside. And I do think that there are ways to figure out how to free up money that is not attached to the ARPA funds and use ARPA funds to pay for those things. So then that'll free up that money to be put up in a reserve. You know, I do know there's strings to a lot of that ARPA funding, but that's just one way around it. You're not using that exact dollar to pay, to put into this rainy day fund or reserve account. You're using your own money to put into the reserve account. And I guess that's it.
Shauneah Gordon?
A rainy day fund, it could be beneficial, but it could also cause problems. Again, people are going to want to know details. Can all details be disclosed? That's going to be the biggest problem with having a fund like that, or figuring out how to actually get it started. Yeah, there's all different kinds of accounts that can be opened. You can accrue interest, you can just set it to the side and you can't touch it till a certain amount is in there. But I'm not exactly sure on. I can see problems with it.
Right, Nora Cadotte?
It's always nice to have a rainy day fund, but with those dollars, you know, and I'm not an accountant, so I have no idea what, you know, the guidelines are or what they say. But if like Joe mentioned, if they can get it from a different account or some way, if they have third-party monies coming in, you know, set that aside for that. But I really don't know how the tribal accounting works, so I really can't answer that question. But yeah, if there's extra money, put it away.
Next question. If elected, how do you propose to bring under control what appears on the outside to be uncontrolled spending of the ARPA board? And starting with Shauneah Gordon.
again, that's disclosing what has been spent. That's really the only way to open up the whole can of worms, basically. And just letting people know. There's not really a lot I can say about it. Just let them know what it has been spent on. What do you plan to spend it on with what's left? You know, things like that.
All right, Nora Cadotte.
Like I mentioned before, transparency. You know, we need to be honest with our community. You know, I think that money was here because of the community and the population. That's why we got that amount of money. And I don't know why it's not disclosed. So I'm all for, you know, transparency. And if I'm elected, I would really advocate for that.
Joe Montano.
Could you repeat that?
Sure. If elected, how do you propose to bring under control what appears on the outside to be uncontrolled spending of the ARP award?
Yeah, I think that ties back into that first question, is transparency. And the appearance of uncontrolled spending. And it appears that way because not everyone knows what's going on. And we can go back to something on the website again, where, okay, this is going here, this is going here, this paid for this plow truck, this paid for that. I understand when it comes to people's wages or whatever, that's personal details, but you can put, okay, well, this is premium paid, so how much going toward premium paid. But yeah, I think it's just a transparency issue.
Next question. We have been in a state of emergency regarding language revitalization. How are you actively involved in language revitalization? If you're not currently involved, how do you plan to become involved? Starting with Nora Cadotte.
Okay, could you repeat that one?
Sure. We have been in a state of emergency regarding language revitalization. How are you actively involved in language revitalization? And if you're currently not, how do you plan to become involved?
Well, right now I am a part of the Cultural Language Committee. I was appointed to that a couple months ago, and we are working on, I believe it's the 5-year plan on how to get this activated again. What are we going to do to bring that language back? And I believe TIPO now has in people learning the language so they can teach it. So I've attended some of their feasts, and I know our ECC teaches our children the language. And hopefully Bayfield School will continue, or hopefully we can get it into our school, public school system.
All right. Joe Montano.
So right now, my 2 daughters attend Waduka Dotting Ojibwe Immersion School in LCO, and they make that long ride every morning and every night, and I think about that, how long they're in a car, but that's what it's going to take. And along with Nora, I am also a cultural or language liaison for the language and cultural liaisons through TIPO. We're also working on the Rosetta Stone app that Mille Lacs recently put out, which is amazing. So I think we're trying to come up with a way to get that to tribal employee wide, and I think that's going to be a very, very successful project.
can I ask him a question?
Uh, you can comment on what he said.
She can ask.
The Rosetta Stone, is that like a language class, or is it online, or
You can,
just
you
It's
can get it online,
Okay.
and it's at your own pace.
like Babbel?
Yep,
Okay,
exactly.
sorry.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. They have it for a lot of different languages. So
Yeah.
that sounds pretty
Just
fantastic.
curious.
All right.
I use the language that I do know on a daily basis. I don't know a lot, but it is daily, and it doesn't really matter who I'm talking to. In some way or another, a word or two is slipped in. Unlike these two, I am not a member of the language preservation that is happening with TIPO. That was delegated to some other staff members, but I guess just keeping it going in my family is the biggest thing that I do. Thank you.
Right. Next question. If elected and in a perfect world, so I don't have a big if here, what are the first three things you would advocate for? Starting with Joe Montano.
Well, I would definitely advocate for tribal online lending for the tribe. As Chris alluded to earlier, there's millions and millions of dollars that can benefit the tribe, the Red Cliff tribe here. There are Supreme Court cases that have been won by Black Butte-Azer tribe. They own their own portfolios. They are making millions of dollars. They paid off their $25 million loan from 1995 in 7 years through tribal online lending. The second thing is that I would definitely review the employment of the assistant tribal attorney and ask what the holdup is with tribal online lending. And the third would be trying to utilize ARPA funds to get the community this Rosetta Stone app.
All right. Time's up. Shauneah Gordon, your top three things?
My top three things. First is our youth. There is nothing here for our future generations. We have a youth center that is falling to the ground as we speak. That is one huge thing that really, really needs to be dealt with. Second is a sober house. We have nowhere for those that are coming out of jail or prison. We have nowhere for our addicts that need the support that they are asking for. And lastly is our land. There's so much of it that can be purchased back, given back. Without that land, we don't have a reservation to expand on.
Nora Cadotte.
I would address the employment on the reservation. We have a lot of job openings. And I want to know why. Why aren't people coming here to work? What is going on with our tribe, our government? And why aren't we getting people to work here? We got excellent wages and benefits, so I would want to look at that whole spectrum. I also would address transparency and be a voice and talk to the people and speak to the people and let them know what's going on. Nothing that's confidential would I review, And I would ask my tribal council if I was elected, what can I share with my community? And the substance abuse issues. I think if we get a healthy community, we may be able to get more employees and people become self-sufficient. And I do have a forum. Our elders in assisted living. Thank you.
Okay, and here's a question that just literally says, do you think people should be paid more? How much more? I take it they mean tribal employees, so we'll just go with that theory. Shauneah Gordon.
What was the question?
I don't know if I can even answer that, it's so vague. It's gonna depend on what they're applying for, what their, I can't even think of the word, what their background is, what they know, what they don't know. If they're worth the pay, then they will be paid it, for the most part.
All right, Nora Cadotte.
Yeah, I think if a supervisor puts a request in for a person to get a raise or a merit a raise, I think that whoever is above them should honor that, because that supervisor sees the work they're putting in to their job, going above and beyond. And yes, they are worth that dollar or 50 cents or whatever they think they should be awarded. So I believe, yes, people should be, you know, accommodated or rewarded for their work.
Joe Montano.
Back in 2018, when I first ran for vice chairman, one of my ideas going forward was to establish a tribal minimum wage, and that would be for the tribal government. And if we were to establish that, I think that would be amazing. I haven't heard of another tribe establishing a minimum wage. And we can also write this into our grants. Okay, well, this is what tribal council said, and this is one of our policies. But if you're thinking now that if someone can get by on $7.25 an hour, I mean, that's ridiculous. Your dollar is worth less now than it was just a few years ago, and inflation is insane right now. Our wages need to move, and I know we have cost of living, but that's change.
All right.
Literally.
Starting with Nora Cadotte, you touched on this as your fourth item, but if elected, will you advocate and share with the public what you're doing to ensure that leadership makes building a nursing home and assisted living facility? And why are you competent to do that?
I worked as the elder director a few years ago for the tribe, and you know, they always struggle with even getting their meals, healthy meals at the elderly food. But yeah, there's no housing here for even our, you know, families and children, and I think our elders need to be respected and taken care of. And if that need is there, I would advocate strongly for that to be done. You know, we have a grant writer, and that would be one of my priorities, that be put up there on that level. Because I think the ideal spot for that is the merchant property right on the lake. And I believe our elders deserve that.
All right, Joe
Could
Montano.
you repeat the question again?
Sure. It's, if elected, will you advocate and share with the public what you're doing to ensure that leadership makes building a nursing home and assisted living facility? And why do you feel confident enough to fulfill that goal?
What would I do? Well, when I was in Montano, I definitely seen how they treated their elders, and they treated them very well. They had assisted living units that was almost like a hotel, and it was 2 stories, and right, they definitely took care of their elders. And you know, to me, anyways, the way that I see things is you can tell a lot about a community by how they take care of the people that can't take care of themselves. I was speaking with an elder the other day, and he informed me that there's only one handicap shower at the elderly building. And that was a shock to me. And I mean, I'll definitely advocate for the elders. And I mean, they paved the trail for us, and they definitely deserve to be taken care of.
Right, thank you. Shauneah Gordon?
So I definitely agree with both Joe and Nora here. Our elders need more than what they are receiving from this community. I have a grandfather who I believe just turned 96 at the end of April. And it's very hard to listen to him. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Okay. Him and my grandma ask for help a lot. And like I said, they're both up there in their age. And when they're denied that help, it hurts. I don't know what else to say about it. Sorry.
Thank you. All right, well, this is a totally different question. Do you feel that all council members should have administrative duties? Starting with Joe Montano.
Like what was alluded to earlier is that there are some tribes that do put administrative duties on their elected officials because it's just so hard to have an outside job and be able to commit all your time to a position like this. You look at the United States government, some places where they kind of, if they're an elected official, they can reserve their job, there's laws where their job is reserved during that time. And, you know, it's definitely hard. And I know that a 2-year term is very, very short. And there's a lot of volatility, I believe. But, yeah. Very good.
Shauneah Gordon?
Can you repeat it, please?
Do you feel that all council members should have administrative duties?
I do feel that way. There is so much that comes into council and so much that council has to put out that even, let's take the executive council, that they can't do that alone. Every member should be allocated, I guess, to do a certain amount of the administrative work. That way, you know, not only will it be getting done in a timely manner, but everybody will kind of know what is happening instead of, you know, the council member sitting next to me, not understanding what's going on, not knowing what's going to happen next. Everybody should have their hand in the administrative duties.
All right, Nora Cadotte?
I think, yeah, council members should have administrative duties. And I think how they approach that now and put council members on specific boards and committees so they know what's happening within that department. But, you know, other issues that are going on, they can assign a council member that. You know, council members can go out to Washington, D.C. You know, you need your chairman here and your vice chairman here. A council member can represent our people as well as those positions, those officer positions, is what I feel. So, you know, if they're available, if they don't have another job, because a lot of our council members have their own jobs, you know, 40 hours a week. So, but I know they do put them on committees and boards and so.
All right. We'll also have you guys get a chance to weigh in on that question about treatment of employees. And I'll do this one. How do each of you feel about the tribal council being involved with the decision-making in hiring and firing employees? Why doesn't this decision come from immediate supervisors rather than council members? Do you think this is an ethical practice? So, to weigh in on this, Shauneah Gordon.
I do not feel that the council should be involved in anything having to do with the employees. To me, that shows favoritism, it shows nepotism. The way that things are dealt with, I'm trying to think of the right words. There's a lot of things that happen with I'm going to say the higher ups, supervisors, directors, things like that, to where things they're really not being handled the right way. We have a human resources department for a reason, and it should go there. Another thing that I want to talk about is the council member on the hiring board. In ways I can agree with it, in other ways I can't. The council's here to represent the community and not represent, but be there for the community and not the employment. It doesn't sit right with me.
Okay, thank you. Nora Cadotte?
I understand our hiring and firing right now is done through our human resources, and there's a select board with council representation. But any like higher up position, the council interviews and selects, like which would be the CFO for the tribe or the manager for this building, that they take that responsibility and want to select that candidate. But I think that, you know, they hire this human resources person to do those duties. And then you're not going to have the favoritism or the nepotism. You know, hopefully not, that they gave them that position with the trust that those people could make that decision to hire somebody with the qualifications. So I don't believe council should have any involvement.
Right. Joe Montano.
To me, that seems like an administrative function. And I know that we just talked about administrative functions being tasked to council members. So I think it comes down to a structure issue. So like Nora was talking about, was that the council does hire and fire key employees because they are basically the direct supervisors of them. As far as hiring and firing someone that has different supervisors, I don't think that even makes sense. So, I mean, I guess I disagree, and I don't think council should be involved in hiring or firing anyone that is not a key employee.
Okay, thank you. Well, we have lots more questions, but we are really getting down there on the time, so I'm going to do one more question before your closing statements. And it's sort of a statement. Please state one thing you respect about each other. And you've got a minute, so you might think of more than one thing. So feel free with your minute, starting with Nora Cadotte.
That I respect of these two?
Yes.
Wow.
Settle down.
There's so much, I don't know where to begin. No, I've known both of these people all of my life, and they've been very respectful. They've been important parts of this community. They speak the truth. You know, they're involved in cultural things. which I very, I'm honored to know both of them. Shauneah is like a daughter to me. Her little boy comes over and plays with my grandchildren. So, and her work ethic and Joe's and their commitment and they're dependable and, I have a lot of respect for both of these young people.
Joe Montano.
I definitely respect that they showed up. It's, and Nora said at the beginning, and I stuttered over everything in my opening remarks. It's hard to get up here, and it's very nerve-wracking, especially when you haven't been in front of even this many people in how many years? Since 2020. But yes, and I know that Nora, I've tried some of Nora's fried bread before. She whipped it up real quick. So I respect her fried bread making skills. And Shauneah, I've known her since, I think you're about 5 years older than me.
Oh, thanks.
And I don't want to date you, but I meant age-wise. But I've never had any ill feelings towards any of them, and I do respect both of them for showing up. And yeah.
And Shauneah Gordon.
So Nora had mentioned that I'm like a daughter to her. I call her Mama No. Every time I ask her for something, she tells me no. It's just always been like that. She's an amazing person to me. And Joe, we never really, we know each other, and that's about the extent of it. One big thing that I can respect is that you have not stopped trying. You mentioned earlier that I think this is your 4th goal at getting into council, and that is something that, because you haven't stopped and you're still going, be proud of that.
Okay, we're going to move to the 1-minute closing remarks in reverse order from your opening statement. So, starting with Joe Montano.
So, like, again, what Nora said, it's a difficult thing to get up here. And if you liked what you heard today, don't be afraid to say anything to, I think, any one of us can, or disagree with any one of us. That's part of the job of running as a candidate. But I want to leave with saying that take a look up here. There's only five people that showed up today, and we showed up because we needed to. This is important. The community needs to know our ideas and where we stand. And I would recommend that if you're unsure of who to vote for, just take a look who showed up today. Only vote for anyone that showed up today. So, Igwech.
Nora Cadotte.
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, it's nerve-wracking. I'm humbled. It's hard to talk about, what your gifts are as a Native person. It's hard for me to talk about that. But yeah, I respect these two for showing up tonight, and I really appreciate that they did. But one of the things that I wanted to say in my closing was, the tribal council used to give an annual report, and the last one they gave to the community was in 2016. And if I get on the council, I would want that brought back, because it's a report to our community. It's about each division, This is how many people we served this year. This is what we accomplished. This is what we're struggling with. I would like to have that given to our community, Be transparent. but every department would give back. And then, everybody get out and vote.
All right. And Shauneah Gordon.
So I think I speak for all three of us, to thank you guys for letting us speak what we had to speak. I just want to say that I guess one big thing is I'm here for the community. I'm not against them. I have a lot of background to where I understand where a lot of members come from and what members are dealing with. I really don't know what else to say except for thanks. You know, it's great to be up here, to be given this opportunity. It is very hard to do. I don't think I've made eye contact with anybody since I've been up here. But it takes a toll on you to be able to speak about things that a lot of people don't want to, or they just don't know how to.
Well, thank you, and my observation is you're all very eloquent, even if you're just talking to this owl creature.
I looked the
but we
owl
have
in the
to-
eyes a
we
few
have to-
times.
So, again, apologies if your question wasn't asked. We just had so many good questions, and our goal is to read enough questions on a variety of topics so that, you know, you as the audience get a good sense of each candidate. So we thank all of you who turned in questions. So now you've heard from the candidates, and I just want to remind you that for Vice Chair, Stephen Boyd, Stephanie Defoe-Haskins, Mercie Gordon, and Nathan Gordon are also on the ballot. And also Benton is on the ballot for Secretary, and he did tell us he had an emergency, so for what that's worth. Just wanted to
That's
comment on that. No, I mean, yeah, sometimes we just don't know why somebody is or isn't here. So anyhow, primary election is May 6th, and you've encouraged people to vote. League of Women Voters is always going to encourage everybody to vote. So thank you to the candidates, to the audience, and to the league crew who helped out tonight, and also the people that organized behind the scenes too. So with that, we'll just say good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.